Previously, in the dungeon of the Mad Mage, the party, still researching and crafting, woke to the last day of their intended break, and what might be the last dawn that one of them would ever see again. Ashes, after considering Taverin's words and speaking with Zalara, had decided... I'll check that in a second. Had decided that he was ready to dedicate himself to Selûne. Down on the lost levels, Bones finished his secret project within the heart of the mountain and sent it up to Ochotu and Eataden. He then tried spending some time studying with Greer in an effort to teach the goblin Dwarvish, but the lessons were cut short as the two got bored and decided to do more fun activities. Still, the goblin accountant/monk now had a goal and an idea of how to achieve it. It would just be a matter of time. Back on the surface, Ashes warned the party of his plan to duel with Taverin and to dedicate himself to Selûne. The party sought to help, kind of, but Ashes was intent on not sullying this duel. After wishing the wearer luck, the party split up, prepared to reconvene in the evening one last time. Matashtai was carried off by Mandius, and Ezrah left to do some shopping. But as Ashes left, a dark shadow passed over his eyes, and he blacked out. Moments later, he blinked his eyes open and found himself in the yawning portal, staring across at the open well leading down into Undermountain. It was mid-afternoon, and it soon became clear that he had spent much of the day here, drinking, which was not his habit. After trying to figure out what was going on from Bonnie and then Zalara, it was actually Durnan, the owner and barkeep, who was able to shed some light on the issue. Ashes had been afflicted, like so many others that delved too deeply or for too long within Undermountain. The shadow within the mountain had a way of taking hold of a person, a way of calling them back. This was just one of the many reasons Durnan made his bar here. The proximity helped him deal with his own call. Armed with this knowledge, but having lost the majority of his day, Ashes returned home. In the meantime, atop the peak top Eyrie, Matashtai was greeted not just by his fledgling students, but also by several members of the Griffin Cavalry that had been impressed by his teachings from the day before. The monk, perhaps somewhat intimidated or thrown off his game, was able to teach a good class, a decent class, but not an impressive class. Nonetheless, he was thanked and paid for his time before returning below to his own, much more successful lessons with the masked man. Ezrah, meantime, roved the city on a search for spell and scribing components before spending a fruitless day attempting to research the devil Varashtu in an effort to figure out what the party was dealing with. Afterward, he spent several hours scribing new spells into his ritual book. The Waterdeep trio met back up for dinner, where Ashes warned the party of his lost day due to the Shadow's call. There was a general concern, both about the Shadow and about Ash's plans for the night. But eventually, as dinner was finished, the group said their goodbyes, and Ashes left for the Temple of the Moon. Once more, Zalara questioned whether or not this was the path Ashes wished to walk. When the wearer stood firm, Zalara voiced that she was with him. And then the two arrived at the temple. Awaiting them was a group of acolytes and Amnestria, the high priestess of the temple. She spoke warmly and welcomingly, but she confirmed first that Ashes was prepared and intent on this course of action. When he did confirm, Amnestria led a procession up the tower to the top spire, where moonlight bathed a small amphitheater. The members of the procession encircled the space, and as Ashes entered, so too did Taverin. The warden had lost his typical jovial nature, and without delay, he asked if Ashes was ready. A third confirmation. And when Ashes gave it, the two were shifted forms and began to fight within the moonlight. The battle started with Ta'Veren showing a prowess that had Ashes worried for his own life. And even as he steeled himself for what was to come, the Blood Hunter made certain to control his own blows, unwilling to risk undue harm to the Warden, who seemed to have no similar compunction. The two traded blows until Ashes called upon Zalara's power, all day Iluna, the dark side of the moon, flooding the amphitheater in darkness. But there, high atop the spire of the temple, Selûne, for whatever reason, as motes of moonlight began to filter into the darkness, did not banish it. She left Ta'Veren to fend for himself in the darkness. And so, the Warden fought on, empowering his sickle Biltzen in a reddish hue that drew the life force from Ashes and added it to the Warden's own. The Blood Hunter fought bravely, and even in the darkness, he was no match for Ta'Veren. The Warden cut him down methodically, until at last Ashes stood on death's door. But in that moment, Ta'Veren paused, and rather than deliver the final blow, he grabbed Ashes by the shoulder, raised his sickle high into the sky. Moonlight began to pour around the tip of the weapon, slowly empowering it for a final finishing blow. But Ashes did not await his fate, instead unleashing a furious barrage into Ta'Veren, who had let his guard down. Once, twice, thrice. Claws from the Blood Hunter tore across the Warden's body, and the White Wolf stumbled, falling to a knee. But Ashes had been focused in his intent from the beginning. He would not kill Ta'Veren for the sake of his own life. And so, even as the Warden stumbled, even as his sickle clattered from his hand, the ball of light swept up in his wake, before streaking through Ashes in the form of a crescent moon. The darkness was rent asunder, and the Blood Hunter fell to his knees, a line down the center of his body where the moonlight had touched, where he was no longer in his transformed werewolf form, as if the light of the goddess had banished his lycanthropy. The amphitheater was silent, but for the gasping, pained breaths of the two wares. It had been a close thing, but Ashes had won. Ta'Veren coughed blood and laughed a hoarse laugh, saying that this was all very unexpected, but that he had said what he had said for a reason. If Ashes returned, he would die. Because, in order to progress forward, Ashes would need to die, to be reborn under Selûne's light, as he had been before all those years ago. For the second time, that night, Ta'Veren asked if the Blood Hunter was ready. And when Ashes replied yes, the Warden ripped out his throat. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.